What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fourth and Wrong. It is Thursday, October 10th. We are in week 7 already, college football season. I don't know how it's possible.
It's the halfway point. That kind of sucks.
I know, I may have said this on the pod before, but I'm one of those guys that's starts to get sad about Christmas being over on December 23rd. That's how I feel right now about college football. It's like, oh, it's already halfway over, which means it's almost over, which means I'm sad.
That's a good way to start the show. Best slate of the year. And as I'm saying that, now it hits me what if the slate sucks? Like all the weeks we thought there was gonna be a bad games, they were awesome.
Yeah, like this past week.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Exactly. I think there's a bunch of exciting games. I mean, some ranked versus unranked that are still exciting, like Penn State, USC. We got some new live listeners in the chat. Shout out Jacob
What's up,
Jones.
Jacob Jones?
First time live, long time listener. LFG, which that's what the kids say, Chris. LFG.
Don't say it, Tyler. You're gonna get in trouble.
With the Lord. Yes.
Yeah.
Are we gonna talk Bama, South Carolina? Oh no.
I didn't make a graphic for it because I don't know what's going on. I mean, we can, but I don't know if it's super necessary. I feel like that's going to be a blowout.
I'm interested to see how Bama comes out in this new era that we're in where, for example, you lose a game and you get people that are hitting the transfer portal using their redshirt freshman or using their redshirt ability to jump ship.
Okay. So real quick on that. Well, you know what? Fine. We'll talk a little bit about the Bama South Carolina game. Every single person I've heard talk about this game keeps using this stupid ass narrative of oh man, Bama's going to be pissed. They just lost. They had everything in front of them. It's the first loss under DeBoer. That team's going to come out on fire. They're at home. Dude, it's an 11 a.m. kick against a lull you to sleep offense with South Carolina that plays really good defense. There's no part of this matchup that makes me I don't think the outcome at all, or a very small part of the outcome is going to be impacted by how pissed Bama is. It's the same shit we heard 2 years ago, the revenge tour shit. I mean, you probably are pissed. You lost to fucking Vanderbilt. That being said, I think the main reason this game will be lopsided is because South Carolina just does not have a good enough offense to score.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Is it who's starting now for them? Is Sellers in? Is it what's his face from Auburn?
Robbie Sellers.
I just feel like they don't have the answer on the roster. I mean, Sellers is he's just not it. And I feel like they're going to struggle to beat anyone that has a pulse as far as having more talent than them.
Yeah.
Hard to rise up when you don't have a great quarterback. I mean, not to over talk about Bama Vandy, but look at just putting Pavia on that team, how much different they are. You have to have a difference maker at QB if you're going to have less talent than the opponent. And I just don't feel like South Carolina's got it, but we'll see. What's the line on that game?
They have a really good defense. The defense is really good, but the line is 21. The over-under is 50.5. I mean, I did a bunch of deep dives for it this week for work because I cover both of them. And it just, again, South Carolina's defense is ranked in the top half and in a lot of categories in the top 5 in the SEC. But the offense is 100th or worse in 17 out of 30 major categories. And the other part of it too, Tyler, I looked at this today. Their third down offense, they are 118th in the country. I think they're converting 30% of their third downs. So in the season, they've had 70 total third down attempts. They've converted 21 of them. They are 8 of 52, or I'm sorry, 11 of 52 on any third down over 4 yards.
Just feels bad.
it's real bad. And they're also super predictable with the way they run the offense, because I think they run on first down like 65 or 66% of the time. Their run to pass play ratio is like 67 to 33%. It's crazy. But the other part of it too is that you're right about Sellers. I don't think he's talented enough right now, and doesn't have any supporting cast around him that's making a difference. But dude, that offensive line was supposed to be better this year, and because they were awful last season, just awful. They've allowed 22 sacks already and have a combined 68 total tackles for loss and sacks allowed through 5 games.
Oof. Yikes. So they actually got worse.
They got worse. Think about the schedule so far.
Yeah. Yeah. You see Spencer Rattler starting for the Saints this week?
Yeah, I was excited about that because we have this merch store we set up, and my dumbass made a design of Spencer Rattler's hair and headband on a crawfish that I thought would really slap, as the kids say. Paid one of our listeners $100 to make the design. It looks good. No one likes it.
Oh, no.
Not a soul. Hold on. The guest that we're about to bring on, Chris Phillips, when he was doing the Spurs Up show, he made a shirt that was like Spencer Rattler's hair, the headband, and like an angry, like chicken, cock, rooster, whatever you want to say, gamecock. That's what I envisioned it. But it looks like Sebastian from The Little Mermaid, just a smiley crawfish with
a headband,
cultural appropriated hair.
Okay. Is there any way you can drop that heat here live so people can get fired up about it?
Head on to 929misfits.com. It should be at the top of the page next to, I don't know what else is up there. It's whatever. A lot of other exciting things to get to this week.
929 Misfits.
I also made a Trump shirt. Don't tell anybody.
Oh, there it is. You want me to share it on here?
Share it on here. Let's get a review.
All right. This is for obviously the people in the chat right now, because this is not great for audio. What do you guys think about this shirt? If you were a Saints fan who
and I know that culture. I get that culture.
So is it just the crawfish just because of New Orleans?
Yeah. It was blatantly supposed to be like the one they had that did so well last year that Chris made.
Oh.
It was not.
Well, $24.99 is a steal, though. I'm just saying. All right.
Oh, jeez.
Good shirt. I like it. Okay, what time is our guest coming on?
It's supposed to be 9, but you've been making fun of my fucking artistic work, so.
Did you say autistic?
I mean, that's what that crawfish looks like.
Okay. Is he coming on to talk like SEC in general or South Carolina? Are you guys gonna just like battle it out about South Carolina and Alabama?
He is not a South Carolina fan, I don't think, anymore. No, we're just gonna talk about the week. He's done a really good job with SEC Unfiltered. They've blown up. He's out in Baton Rouge right now for the Ole Miss LSU game. So we're just gonna talk a little about SEC stuff. Also in the chat, this is not gonna surprise you or shock any of you, but we don't have a super detailed plan tonight. So if you have questions, I know Willie Gray's been hitting me up with gambling picks, and they've got to be better than mine at this point. Hit us up in the chat, hit us up in the DMs, whatever. Looks like the last place in the so that does look like a great minor league baseball team.
Makes you think.
The Crawfros.
Yeah. Like that.
It wasn't my best work.
Okay, outside of the big games this week, are there any angles in the deep dives that you've been doing that you can share?
I'll give you one. So Kentucky is a 14-point favorite over Vandy. And this is not just because Vandy just beat Bama, but they were a 14-point favorite over Vandy going into this week. They're coming off a bye. Mark Stoops is one of the worst coaches in the country coming off a bye week. I don't know how he's managed to do that. He's 4-10 against the spread as a head coach. He is if you include bowl games, he's like 9-14 or 9, something like that. In the regular season, he's 5-10. None of those wins are against teams that finished the winning record. I think they had a combined record of like 20-40. Hold on, let me look this up real quick. Let me make sure I read this well. But he's really bad. And also, Vandy's been like a covering machine. They're 5-0 against the over. They've been great. But Stoops has been, I want to say it's like in those 9 wins, only one of them has been by more than 7 points. So everything that he has done, like coming off the bye week, he has been really, really bad. The other one is, and we'll preview this game later, but LSU Ole Miss, Brian Kelly is 15-8 against the spread off his bye weeks all time. He is 20-3 straight up in the regular season coming off a bye week.
Wow. Love that stat. Got a little tip from a listener in the DMs.
Okay.
A little Mississippi State plus 34 against Georgia.
Why? Georgia's like 1-4 against the spread.
Maybe some injury concerns at some key positions.
Are you being serious right now?
Yeah.
Are we breaking news?
Mississippi. I'm not breaking any news. I'm not saying who it is, but plus 34. I was thinking it anyways, just because I don't really like the spot for Georgia. It's just like, okay, you got what? They have Texas next week, right? I doubt they're going to try to put too much on tape. I don't know how much you leave your starters in.
I mean, I would imagine they put a lot on tape in that Bama game.
That's fair, but anything new? I mean, Mississippi State, I think you're just probably going to be a very vanilla get out of there with a 3-4 touchdown win.
Yeah.
34, 35 points is a ton against an SEC opponent.
So, I wouldn't disagree with that. That was the same as Texas. Texas was favored. What do you call it? What is this? Texas was like a 35-point favorite against Mississippi State at home, and they I think it was like 14-6 at the half. I mean, like I have a couple of other like good angles. I feel like. What do you have?
Well, I want to do my hashtag T-Hawk After Dark because there's 2 great games. Well, I shouldn't say they're both great games. One's a great game, Kansas State, Colorado.
Yeah.
I feel like if Colorado wins this game, I kind of feel like you have to start actually respecting them for the first time since Deion's been in Colorado.
I won't do that, but that's fair.
Because Kansas State should win this game. They're 4-point favorites at Colorado, so that game's at 10:15, and then 11 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. Boise State at Hawaii. Go watch Aston Ginty if you haven't seen him. The dude is averaging over 200 yards a game. And if you've had a few cocktails during the day and you just want something fun to turn on as you fall asleep, 11 o'clock p.m. in Hawaii, Boise State, go watch the best running back in the country.
So, go ahead.
That's it.
T-Hawk After Dark. I like that for one.
Yeah.
We might need you to come like replace me for like the picks this year because my picks have been fucking terrible.
We'll see.
All right, let's bring our guests in here.
All right.
We're now, I wouldn't say excited to be joined. This guy, he was covering South Carolina for a while, but he couldn't hack it because their fan base is just so knowledgeable. I'm fucking with you. How are you, man?
What's up, boys? Chris, Tyler, good to see you, man. Yeah, I just wanted to spread the love, man. So it's like I told you earlier this summer, Chris. It's the irony wasn't lost on me when we were doing our season preview stuff, and the SEC entity was interviewing Chris Marler, the voice of the Gamecocks. So no, it's a pleasure to join you guys, man. You guys are doing great work and great to chat with you, man. It's always fun.
You too, man. All right, listen. So a huge weekend of games, right? Huge slate of games. Tyler just asked me this. Anything off the beaten path that you're excited about that we're not talking enough about outside of like the LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida, all that stuff?
Yeah, I would say how does Vanderbilt follow up Prosperity beating Alabama? I think that's a game that's still probably going under the radar a little bit. Vandy going to Kentucky, right? That's not going to probably still move the needle nationally, but it's a whole new challenge for Clark Lee this week handling that level of prosperity, right? Like you can do all kinds of stuff. You can set mousetraps around the facility like Kalen DeBoer tried to do, or whatever speeches you want to give. But it's something that Vanderbilt football has never dealt with necessarily. So, whether you believe in Diego Pavi or what have you, I mean, Kentucky coming off the bye week, obviously they beat Ole Miss. So I think that's a really interesting game. Just how does Vandy follow up? One of the biggest upsets we've ever seen in the SEC. And then on the flip side, Marler and Tyler, I would say, how does Alabama respond, right? I mean, they've got South Carolina in that 11 a.m. game, and I think most of us are expecting them to have a big bounce back performance. But what does it look like? I think that's what it more so comes down to. Like, I think Alabama's going to win the football game. I mean, God forbid if they don't, we're going to be having some very interesting conversations next week. But more so, what does it look like? Do they bounce back defensively? So I would say the early game and the super late game are the two that, again, off the beaten path, not the ones we're talking nationally. I would say those two really intrigue me.
Dude, I feel like we were talking about it right before you came on. The idea that Bama is going to come out here and just smoke South Carolina with like the only thing that South Carolina is actually good at is defense. It's an 11 a.m. kick. I don't like we heard all this shit last week from the coaching staff, and it was like they got no choice but to move on. Well, they didn't. No one did. Anyway, Tyler, you go ahead. I'll stop complaining about the game.
What are your thoughts on this? Weirdly enough, the SEC matchup between Texas and Oklahoma. 14-point spread. I looked up a stat here. The last 10 matchups, there's only been one game that's been settled by more than 8 points. So, based on that, it feels like Oklahoma should be in this game. But then again, their offense isn't very great. Texas seems to be pretty well-rounded to get Ewers back. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Tyler, that one game you're mentioning that was outside of 8 points was obviously 2 years ago, and it was 49-0, and Oklahoma essentially didn't have a guy that could throw a forward pass. I also learned, by the way, this week from Parker Thune, who joined us from the Ref in Norman. Does a great job with them. I learned that General Booty was on that team. He was supposed to start that 2022 game, but he had an allergic reaction the morning of, so he couldn't go. So they had to go to – I don't even remember who the guy's name was, but, the rest is history. Obviously, lost 49.
That booty got sick, though. That booty got sick.
that booty fell ill. I don't know what he fell ill to. But, no, to your point, man, it's there are a lot of rivalry games, rivalry matches to say, oh, man, throughout the record books, the stats don't matter. This Texas-Oklahoma game definitely feels that way, though. It just seems year after year. I think there's also kind of this mental chess match going on because Oklahoma has dominated the rivalry. I mean, they're 17-8 in the last 25. I think they're 7-3 in the last decade. Or going to be 8-2, 11-3. Okay, so I mean they've had their way with Texas. So I think I was told this is the second largest point spread in the history of the Red River Shootout, which kind of gives you an indication of how close it's been. I think Oklahoma can keep it close. Obviously, they're going to have to force some turnovers. Guys, I could see this being very similar to what the Tennessee-Oklahoma game was, where, you've got Oklahoma's defense. They're able to keep the team in it, hang around, but they're probably going to need to force some turnovers. I mean, if Texas can play a clean football game, which against that defense is much easier said than done, Oklahoma just doesn't have the firepower to keep up. I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think that's, even talking to them, they'll tell you straight up, hey, here's our path to victory. We got to get like last year's game. First drive of the game, they pick off Quinn Ewers. They start at Texas's 20-yard line. They go up 7-0. Like that's kind of how I think this game's going to have to go. So if Texas plays clean football, Quinn Ewers is back. I do question. I think it is going to be a close game because it's like, hey, Quinn Ewers hasn't played in a while. I think he'll probably make some mistakes, be a little bit rusty, but I will not be surprised if Texas pulls away. So history will tell us it'll be a close game, but I definitely think there's a disparity when it comes to the talent on the field in that game on Saturday. But again, what the 2024 season has taught us, guys, when you think you know, you don't. So be careful with that 14-point line.
Yeah, you're down in Baton Rouge right now?
I am in Baton Rouge, yes. We're at a little spot for dinner. Ben 77, shout out to that if any listeners know. But yeah, we're out in Baton Rouge. So flew into New Orleans today, got to Baton Rouge, and we're going to go explore LSU tomorrow and be at the game on Saturday. It's going to be a really good time. But yeah, really excited for this. My first ever night game at Death Valley experience. So I'm looking forward to it.
Dude, it's unlike anything else you've ever been to. It is.
I have been warned, Marler. I have been warned more than you could imagine, but you could ever imagine. Like I've had people tell me literally my sister and her husband lived here for 3 years, and their really good friend is the guy that we're staying with. He's born and raised Baton Rouge, went to LSU, and I'm talking to my sister this morning, and in the back, I think she's got me on speaker. In the background, I hear him say, "Hey, Chris, you want me to get you an IV for the weekend?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's that. Like, I think I'll be all right, you know? And so I tweeted that earlier today, or X'd or whatever. And people were like, Chris, you need to take that offer. Because they're like, I mean, it's like you're walking into a war zone, like in the best possible way. So I'm excited, man. The passion's unmatched. It's the culture being down here is unlike anything you've ever experienced. So, yeah, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
So
They are built differently, like absolutely built differently. I have never seen like those livers are tougher than I feel like South Carolina's like straight the schedule's been the last fucking decade, dude. It is ridiculous.
that puts it in great
All right,
perspective.
before we get you out of here, man. Yeah, before we get you out of here, I know you've been doing a great job, obviously, with everything that's just unfiltered, blowing that up throughout the season and before as well. But like, you're on this tour right now. You're going to a different SEC campus. You're not even doing any repeats. You've gone to what is this 7 already?
This is week 7, boys. The season's flying by. I mean, we're at the halfway point, essentially. We're at the halfway point, which is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God's not real. Nothing's real anymore, so that's fine. We have nothing to look forward to. But like so far through the 6 trips you've taken, what's the trip like? What's been your favorites? Campus that you visited, and also like give us something funny from the road about a fan base or something you saw.
That's a great question, Marlo. I really try to not power rank them because number one, the hospitality's been great everywhere I've been. So I feel like it would be like nowhere has sucked. You know what I mean? I'm not going to power rank somewhere last or anything, but I will tell you what's been beautiful about it is the people make the experiences first off. The fans have been great at every single stop. The games have been awesome for the most part. I mean, we've been to Gainesville, we've been to Jordan-Hare, we've been to Columbia, South Carolina, we've been to Bryant-Denny, we've been to Fayetteville, and now we're going to LSU. I mean, as far as best experience, Chris, I was in Tuscaloosa for Alabama, Georgia. Like it's really hard to top what that weekend was like. I had never experienced anything like that, a top 5 matchup. You know, the intensity in the stadium, the way the game ended, obviously. That's what made that Vanderbilt game so shocking. I'm like, I just watched this Bama team do that.
Yeah.
And then they go to Nashville and do what they did. Anyways, that's beside the point. I would probably say nicest people to this point, Marlo. You'll get a laugh out of this. I think Auburn, honestly. Probably the most family-friendly, welcoming environment, which was so funny because I did Auburn, and it was like, let's all lock arms and hold hands and sing together, and we'll do our swag surf. And then you go to Tuscaloosa the next week, and it's like, hell yeah, it's a party, baby! Like it was like not saying that Auburn wasn't,
baby.
Not saying that Auburn wasn't fun, but I was even told they were like, Chris, at Auburn, you're gonna get that fun, family-friendly atmosphere. In Tuscaloosa, you're gonna fucking rage. Like it is just,
yeah.
And dude, it was like being at a rock concert, bro, at the Bama game, which was great. It was awesome. I mean, dude, every stop.
Fans they've always been better fans than Bama fans, but I feel like it's mainly because the football program is dog shit right now, and you don't see a lot of mean fat people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if you already,
you got to pick one. You got to pick one.
You got to pick one. You can't be a fat asshole. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So I would say too, what's been really funny on the tour is that 2-week stretch of going to Auburn and then Tuscaloosa, because I did it back to back. I learned a very valuable lesson. Don't ask Auburn or Alabama people about feedback about each other if you're just looking for objective analysis, because they both hate each other so much. They can't say anything nice about the other. I'm just like, hey, how's the city? How's the town? What's the game day like? It's a shithole. That sucks. And they're like, I'm like, I just was in Auburn. I had a great time. And they're like, nope, it sucks. I'm like,
great.
All right. I mean, yeah, they were both great. Again, they're maybe a little bit different, obviously, but they're both great. Fayetteville this past weekend was incredible. I mean, they've all been great stops, man. I mean, Florida was really special because it was the very first one. The media guys down in Gainesville, that's probably one of the most fun beats you'll ever find of guys that cover that football team. It was unfortunate the game stunk, right? I really didn't get to see the Swamp in its peak because they got drilled by Miami. I mean, South Carolina, guys, was the rowdiest noon game atmosphere I've ever seen. That place was unhinged for the LSU game. Like, I'm not just saying that. Like, that was as intense as any night game atmosphere I've seen in that building or anywhere else for that matter. So, They've all been great, man. I'm sure LSU is going to exceed every expectation I have. And again, night game in Death Valley, it'll be its own special, unique thing. And I will say this, guys, in closing, it's been the people that have made the experience so special. Everybody's been so accommodating and so welcoming. And even this week, I've had LSU fans reach out to us and DM us, hey, come by the tailgate. We're going to have food. You got to do this. You got to do that, man. It's, and obviously getting to link up with so many different people in person that cover the teams and people I've worked with and done work with. And, tomorrow night, for example, for anybody that knows Blake Ruffino, AYS Sports, I'm going to dinner with him out in Baton Rouge. First time ever meeting him in person. So that's what's been really special about it, guys, is linking up with all the different people and meeting the fans and them embracing us as well. So, yeah, it's a blast, man, kind of living out a dream.
Hey.
Yeah.
Tell Blake specifically I said, hey, he's a big fan of mine.
Will do. Yeah. I know you've got lots of friends on social media, Marlon, but
I don't even know. I thought he was great, man. I don't remember anything bad happening. I just remember one time I made a joke on Twitter about something, and he was like, "You might want to think what you say next. It's not going to end well for you." And I'm like, "Are you going to beat me up?" Anyway,
I will say one of my last takeaways. I don't think he'll mind me saying this. Actually, I won't say who told me it, but a good friend of mine who is an Arkansas guy, and this has just stuck out to me. He said this. He was at the Auburn trip because they played Arkansas. He told me, Chris, here's where you find a wife in the SEC. Auburn, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. Those three schools. Everywhere else, they're good for a little while, not a long time, but those three schools is where you find a wife. And he also mentioned that Ole Miss is where they redshirt Miss Americas. So those two things stuck out to me. I haven't been to Oxford yet, but those two things stuck out to me. So,
God, I hope Allie doesn't listen to this fucking show. All right, dude, go have fun, man. We'll get at you soon.
Tyler, Chris, y'all the best, man. I appreciate it. Keep it the great work. Thank y'all.
See you, brother.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we at here?
Like a Daughtry concert or something. What's going on there?
God, I fucking miss Daughtry. Well, I guess what, guys? The show's not over. Seamless transition. It's not over. Okay.
Oh, I see the Daughtry.
It's a Daughtry reference. All right. Yeah. Well, anyway. All right. Let's go through these games. Let's get into these best bets. I'll look through. You start. I'm going to look through my notebook because I have 1,000 different notes.
I'm sure you do. All right. Let's start 3:30 on CBS. Number 4, Penn State, who is undefeated at USC, who is 3-2 now and unranked. USC is currently a 5-point as of this afternoon. I don't know if it's changed. 5-point underdog at home. Total's 50.5. This is the first time Penn State has played USC in LA since 1991. The last time that these two teams played each other was in the Rose Bowl in 2017. Chris, I don't know if you remember that game, 52-49. Big time shootout. Penn State is the only program in the country to start 5-0 in each of the past 4 seasons.
Really? You know that?
Yeah. Pretty crazy, huh?
I'm trying to do the math on that. I guess that's right.
Bama and Georgia both lost it this year.
And Georgia lost to South Carolina. Listen, here's the thing. I think we mentioned this last week. Penn State is James Franklin is one of those guys that gets like an unfair, he gets like an unfair shake from the casual fan because he's probably not an elite coach in terms of he hasn't won a championship or played for one or any of that kind of stuff. But the ceiling and floor are both at 10 to 11 wins every single year, which is very difficult to do in college football. Listen, winning consistently at any level is very difficult. It's especially difficult to in the second best conference in the country. And this over the last year and a half, Drew Aller, the quarterback, has 41 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He is top 5 in the country in QBR. They're a top 5 team. I'm assuming the defense is still good. They got the guy from Indiana that replaced Manny Diaz. It's weird that USC is a 5-point underdog.
Well, here's the big problem for them. Nick Singleton, he's back for this game. He was out against UCLA last week. He's averaging 7.7 yards per carry this year. USC, 102nd in the nation in rush yards per play on defense. You look at Penn State's defense, they are top 10 in points per game allowed, yards per game allowed, yards per play allowed, rush and pass yards per game. Their defense has been extremely good. USC as a single-digit dog over the last 10 years, 6-19 against the spread.
Okay.
See where I'm going with this?
I like that.
Penn State 8-1 against the spread as road favorites the last 3 years. I'm going Penn State here.
As a 5-point favorite on the road across the country.
Penn State 35, USC 28.
I don't think that.
I don't think USC is going to be able to stop the run. I think Penn State can control the clock. I think they're better on the lines. Again, Penn State, when they play the typical Michigan, maybe not this year, Ohio State, they don't win those games. All the other ones, they crush.
Yeah, also those teams you just mentioned that they lose to are usually a lot better defensively than any Lincoln Riley team ever.
Right, which is why I like Penn State.
I think that's fair.
I know that there's some crazy stat right now because of the Big Ten's going through this whole first year where these teams are having to go two time zones away from where they're used to, and like the against the spread record is horrible on the team that's traveling more than 2 time zones. So that goes obviously against my pick.
Right.
But I think I still, USC turnover plagued. Miller Moss threw 2 picks in Minnesota territory last week, which has a lot to do with why they lost. USC's down one of its best defenders probably for the year, and linebacker Eric Gentry. So I think I like Penn State here. I wouldn't be shocked if USC covered, but I'm going to take 35-28 Penn State.
I hate a 5-point spread, so I would take USC to cover it at least. They have 2 losses. They're both on the road. It's so far out there. I'm assuming some Penn State fans will travel, but the only thing that worries about Penn State, because I think they are really talented. I think they're a really, really good football team. It's also a different experience, and we see this like teams like kind of like fall off a cliff, like from a performance and like production wise, when they start the season playing against cupcakes. And I'm not even saying that that's what Penn State has done. Like Tennessee, very clearly that's what they've done. Penn State, I'm not sure how strong their schedule has been so far, but it worries me that they're going to go 4,000 miles across the country and then they're going to have to, get into a dogfight. Because if there's one thing we know about Lincoln Riley, like they are going to put up points offensively. They will figure some things out. I don't know if, man, that's tough because it's at home. I'm going to pick USC to cover the spread. I'll take Penn State 28-27.
Be a good game. That game 3:30 CBS. This game 3:30 ABC. Number 1 Texas versus the bar chart in number 18 Oklahoma. Texas 5-0, Oklahoma 4-1. Oklahoma a 14-point underdog, total 50.5. Like I said before, when we were talking to Chris Phillips, in the past 10 regular season meetings, only one was decided by more than 8 points. That was the 2022 Texas 49-0 victory. Quinn Ewers back for the first game since September 14th. Ewers is 1-1 in his career against Oklahoma. Last year, he threw for 346 yards with a touchdown and a pick, but Texas lost to OU 34-30. Oklahoma, very bad on offense, very good on defense. One of the top defenses in the country when it comes to creating turnovers. I kind of agree with what Chris Phillips was saying. I think they're going to have to hope that Ewers is a bit rusty from not playing in a bit, keep some of that turnover luck going to have a chance to actually win the game. OU's really banged up at wide receiver. I think they get Burks back this week.
They do not.
No? Okay, so hate that.
So even worse.
Offense has been atrocious. So Oklahoma's offense, 113th in the country in yards per game, 117th in yards per play, 122nd in third down conversions, 111th in sack percentage, giving up a lot of sacks. Texas defense has been awesome. 2nd in points per game allowed, 3rd in yards per game allowed, 2nd in yards per play allowed. Very good. Pass defense has been the specialty for Texas, and Oklahoma can't pass the ball. But let's look closer at the numbers here, Chris. I'm eyeing Texas. Texas has played Colorado State, Michigan, who has a horrible offense, UTSA, ULM, and Mississippi State.
That's a good point.
Michigan and UTSA, bottom 5 in the country in passing offense. Michigan's the only defense that they've played that's worth any of a shit. This is the lowest point total this game has seen since 2014.
Okay.
That game, OU was favored by 16.5. Total was 47, and the game ended up 31-26. OU won. It was close, and they went over.
Is that the overtime game?
2014, I can't remember. I'm gonna go similar vibes here, just the other way. I think the Red River shootout has always been a crazy game that you can't really predict the outcome. I think OU will score more on that Texas defense than anyone thinks, because I don't think that Texas has played anyone that has a good offense. And I think that Oklahoma will cover the game. Texas will still win, and the game will go over the points because, like I said, what's the total again? 50.5. It's the lowest it's been since 2014.
So I feel like this is like one of my locks of the week. Is
35-27, by the way, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Sorry, Texas.
I think this is like one of my locks of the week. I'm trying to pull it up right now. I kept seeing after like the start to the season they had from Oklahoma fans like memes and comments about how like all we wanted was an elite defense. Then you get an elite defense and like the offense is terrible. They don't have an elite defense. Like they're not ranked in the top 5 in the conference in any major statistical category. The only one is like I think rush defense. Everything else they are nowhere near the top 5. Several categories in stats where they're like 10th or worse. Here's the issue. I think that it sucks for Oklahoma because they have dominated this series. And I think that if you would have asked us 2 years ago, Oklahoma coming into the SEC, that's the program that I would have expected to compete right away because of how great they were. And then Lincoln Riley left. You had this run of quarterbacks, kind of like how Clemson was. Like at some point, the generational quarterbacks aren't going to keep generational quarterbacking, and there's going to be some sort of drop off. So it makes sense that it happened. It's not an indictment on Venables or anything like that, but I love what you said about Texas and who they've played, because that is a very, very good point, and it might very well be true that it's been like a Charmin soft schedule. But all these games that Oklahoma's won in this rivalry, all the games they've kept close, the one thing that Oklahoma always had was a quarterback. And the only time they've had a freshman quarterback, I feel like in recent memory, that has like balled out this game was Caleb Williams, who was the number 1 overall draft pick. And they don't have that. Like Michael Hawkins might be good, but he has his entire starting receivers or his like group of starting receivers are out. Like you saw when they went to Auburn, they were down 5 receivers. The offensive line is a complete makeover mode from last year. Like it's all 5 new guys. I don't think that they're a bad team necessarily, but like they're a very, very fortunate fourth quarter from Auburn and Peyton Thorne from losing that game. They were close with Tulane. They were close with Houston. Mm-hmm. I think Texas fucking rolls in this game. Destroys them. Because if there's one thing I do know about Sark, 9-5 against the spread coming off the bye, but also they've got weapons everywhere. And this is like the step on someone's forehead and push them back into the water. That's as graphic as I can get. Like they are going to separate themselves from their old rival, like in front of everyone in this conference this weekend.
I saw a crazy stat. Speaking of Caleb Williams today on Twitter or X, every quarterback that Lincoln Riley has had in college since Baker Mayfield is now starting in the NFL. Now that Spencer Rattler is starting for the Saints.
That's insane, dude. He's been a head coach for less than like 10 years.
It's Mayfield, Murray, Hurts, Rattler, and Caleb Williams.
Wait, who was the other one? You said Hurts? Oh, yeah, Jalen, yeah. Dude, they also made like a combined like $1 billion.
Yeah, pretty wild. And it's also even weirder that like USC can't get it together under him, like even with Caleb. Okay, let's go to maybe not such a close spread, but always a fun game to cover. 7 p.m. on ESPN. Florida 3-2 at number 8 Tennessee 4-1, coming off the loss to Arkansas. Tennessee, last I had minus 15.5. Total 55.5. Let's just go back to 1998, Chris. No reason. That's 26 years. Tennessee has won this game 6 times in that time frame.
Total. Yeah. Why don't we shorten up and just go the last 19 years when 17-2?
Oof. The last time they played this game at home, they won this game. So that is one of the two. They were number 11. Florida was number 20, and they won that game 38-33. They were 10-point favorites in that game, but they did not cover. It
was a backdoor cover. Anthony Richardson.
Yep. In 2014, they were a 14-point favorite in this game at home and lost straight up 10-9. I think Arkansas's defense is better than Florida's defense, but it's not an elite defense by any stretch. And I think they kind of figured out how to contain the offense a little bit of Tennessee's, holding them to 14 points. Essentially, they were just dropping 8 DBs back, and Nico was just kind of confused as to what to do at that point.
Couldn't figure it out.
I think people forget that he is still a first-year starter, still a young kid.
Yeah.
I don't know if Florida can execute that game plan, but they were kind of given the blueprint by Arkansas on how to slow it down. Tennessee's averaging 40 points per game. I think Florida can hold them under that. Okay. So now do you think that offense can come close to what Tennessee can put up on their side of the ball? I don't know. Tennessee, their defense has been good. I think it's actually the better unit on the field right now. But the history of this game, plus I think Florida looked pretty decent last week. They've won their last 2 games. They've covered their last 2 games. So they're kind of trending in the right direction. I don't think that they're going to go up and beat Tennessee. But just the history of this game, it always seems to be weird. I think this one's going to be closer than Tennessee fans are comfortable with until late. Tennessee pulls away, but Florida keeps within the number 35-24 Tennessee.
I love that. That's a really, really good breakdown of this. People that are younger than us don't realize how great and how big of a rivalry this used to be. I mean, I was talking about it on air with Doring this morning, and like I was telling him, it was like this was the biggest game of the year every single year, and it was the first game of the year on CBS every single year. It kicked off the season, and usually, like you're 3 weeks into the season, you knew whoever won this game was going to win the SEC East at least, if not the conference. But here's the thing: I've said this a couple of times in a couple different situations, like brought up with Bama and Georgia. I think there's another one as well. Tennessee is a 15.5-point favorite against a team they've beaten twice in the last 19 years. Tennessee just lost to Arkansas on the road. They
kind of underperformed against Oklahoma in a way as well. I felt like
I would agree with that. It was on the road, and
they did cover that game, but it just I didn't get good vibes. I mean, Oklahoma's got a much better defense than Florida, though.
Sure, but here's the other thing too. Like the longer you let somebody stay in a game, like Tennessee better put them away early, because the longer you let them stay in this game, the more that seed of doubt creeps in their minds. Just like we talked about the Georgia Bama, just like we talked about in just other situations, other games. Like for whatever reason, this team has your number. And dude, the same thing last year. They were a favorite going into the Swamp. They've only won there twice since 1971. They get beat by double digits. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Florida's going to win this game. I will say I've been really, really impressed with what Napier's done over the last 2 weeks. Granted, it's against the worst team in the conference, Mississippi State, but also he's a home underdog against UCF, and everyone has just kept waiting and waiting for when's the next shoe going to drop, and he's going to lose his job. Since he has made this switch to the 2-quarterback system, Lagway and Mertz have combined for 6 total incompletions over the last 2 games, 6 total, and 5 touchdowns. Lagway is a perfect 11 for 11 with 148 total yards of offense. Mertz has put up I think they've combined to right around 600 yards. Like I said, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. They have done, and Lagway last week was he has consistently been put in situations where he's had to make decisions and play beyond his years, like inside of his own 10-yard line against Mississippi State when that game was close. He audibled out on 3rd down for the play that sprung that running back for a touchdown last week against UCF. I like both of them. It's going to be a hostile environment, I would think, but it could also get quiet there pretty quickly if it's not. I think Tennessee fans assume they're going to go and go run them out of the building, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is much closer than people think. I think Florida covers the spread at least. I'll say Tennessee wins, but it'll be less than 10 points.
Okay, so we agree there. 7:30 on ABC. Number 9, Ole Miss, 5-1. At number 13, LSU, who is 4-1. LSU currently a 3.5 point underdog at home. Total 62. I love LSU outright here, Chris. I looked back at this game. So there's a couple things I was looking at. Oh, is that a deep dive?
We got a deep dive. Go ahead.
All right. LSU was a home dog to Ole Miss in 2020. Won that game outright. They were a 3-point home dog to number 3 Ole Miss in 2014. They won that game outright, 10-7. I think Garrett Nussmeier is quietly having a very good season. I don't think he gets talked about very much. I think they're getting healthier at wide receiver. Ole Miss, their defense is more vulnerable against the pass. LSU doesn't. I mean, and they're at like a 60-40 split. I think they're 123rd in the country in run rate on offense. Like, they don't run the ball very much. It's a very high volume pass game.
Oh, they run the ball, or they throw the ball 68% of the time.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, another factor that I'm looking at here, they're averaging over 9 penalties a game, and that is with most of the games being at home and not really playing in extreme hostile environments yet. I mean, South Carolina on the road, I guess, but you're at Death Valley at night. I think this is the type of game where you're going to have to be the better team on third down. LSU's offense is 8th in the country in third down conversions. Ole Miss's defense is 3rd in third down conversions in the country and stopping them. So that's a matchup to look at. But I think I like LSU here straight up 34-30. It's going to be high scoring. I know Ole Miss is thought to have a good defense. I don't know that they've played the best slate of offenses yet. And this is where LSU, I think, could have a coming out party against that defense. And I think they take this game outright. Chris Phillips is going to be live to witness the upset, 34-30 LSU. I don't know. I also don't know with the whole Kiffin to Florida thing. Like,
I don't think that's real.
No? Okay.
No. But I will say this. The words you just used, the upset. I don't know what's going on in Vegas right now, but you're talking about a team. First off, LSU coming off a bye, right? Mm-hmm. I got some numbers for this one that are I think are just tell the story before the game's even played. LSU is coming off a bye. They're at home. They're an underdog at home at night in a revenge spot against a team that is playing their 7th straight game this season. They're the only team in the conference that's done that. I understand that the schedule hasn't been super difficult and a lot of tough opponents, but 7 straight games is going to wear you out, especially when LSU's coming off a bye, especially when Brian Kelly is 15-8 against the spread off a bye. And the greatest stat you're going to hear all week, Brian Kelly is 20-3 straight up in regular season games coming off a bye week. LSU, again, home underdog at night. This game in Baton Rouge, LSU has won 10 of the last 11, including 7 straight. They have scored 38 points or more in 6 of those 7 wins, 40 or more in 5 of the 7. They have been, I think the average margin of victory in those games was something I didn't add up, so I can't tell you what it is, Tyler. Over the last 4 years, it's been 20 points. They've won those games by an average of 20 points per game. There's always a lot of points in this one, especially when they're in Baton Rouge. The number I have right here, 82.6. That's the average point score between Ole Miss and LSU in their last 5 meetings. 82.6 has been the average they put up in the last 5 games overall. LSU's won 7 straight against Ole Miss and Death Valley, including 10 of their last 11. I told you the average points scored in those games, 39.3, 65.2%. That's Brian Kelly's winning percentage off the bye week. I already told you the 23. So the one thing that worries me about LSU, or the one thing that I think that is the most intriguing matchup, Ole Miss's defensive line is incredible. They have been as advertised, they've been as good as we all thought they would be out of the portal. They're averaging 10.5 tackles for loss per game right now.
Jesus.
They lead the country in sacks with 24. Now LSU is the best offensive line in the conference so far. They've only allowed 2 sacks all season. They got 2 potential first rounders at the tackle positions. So I think the interior offensive line versus the interior defensive line, that's going to be a huge matchup. You mentioned earlier, like LSU is not trying to run the football. Like I think they're going to try to get Caden Durham going a little bit in this game, but that's just not where their success is. And they have a lot of talent at the receiver and tight end position. They're still banged up there, but they've had a lot of guys step up. Ole Miss has been injured, like in the secondary. Trey Amos. Everyone keeps talking about Trey Harris, the receiver that's put up like a bazillion yards so far. Trey Amos in the secondary, he's been banged up. And also, even when he's healthy, he's like the most flagged cornerback in the league. Ole Miss has 2 of the most penalized defensive backs in the entire country starting in the secondary. LSU outright, man. Like, I think it'll be a good game. I think Ole Miss is good. I think they're a good team. I was really impressed with what they did last week. But Death Valley at night on the road, Kiffin's 0-4 as the head coach at Ole Miss in road games against ranked opponents. It hasn't. Most of those games weren't close.
I love it. All right, so we're both on the Tigers, and the game of the week here, 7:30 on NBC. Number 2, Ohio State, undefeated at number 3, Oregon, also undefeated. Oregon, a 3-point home dog.
That's
total
bizarre.
53.5. So I was looking at the numbers. There is like no edge when you like look at the last 10 years. Look at these stats here. I'm just going pure vibes on this game because I can't get an edge. Ohio State is 20, 19, and 3 against the spread as an away fave. So basically 50-50.
Yeah.
Oregon, 3-4 as a home dog. So basically no edge there. Ohio State is 1-1-1 as a favorite of 3 or less. So no real edge there. Oregon, 7-7 as an underdog of 3 or less. No edge there. I'm just going pure vibes here. I think Ohio State's the better team. I think they have more talent. And I think I've been less impressed with Oregon at times this year. I think they are getting better. Maybe they're getting more healthy. It's been hard to catch some of the Oregon games, to be honest. But I just think Ohio State is, up there with Georgia as the top talented team in the country, maybe the most talented team in the country right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to take them in this game. I'm not super confident. Probably wouldn't actually bet this game because I'm just kind of looking forward to hopefully an awesome game. But man, I just don't know. Even though I picked Taylor Gabriel in the offseason for who I thought would win Heisman, I thought he'd be having a better season than this. I don't know that I trust him in this game. I think, you can get Will Howard going on the ground to go along with Jeremiah Smith, who's an absolute monster, along with
He's so good.
Mecca Egbuka. I got Ohio State to cover the spread. I think it'll be something like 35-24.
Damn. Yeah, this is interesting, man, because I feel like I haven't seen hardly any. I besides highlights, I haven't seen either of these 2 teams really play a single drive this year. I think Oregon, obviously, they got up to a weird start, like a very slow start. They were close in a couple games against teams they absolutely should not have been.
Well, one was Boise, and we found out that they have like a cyborg at running back, so maybe
weren't they close against like Portland State though?
Yeah, they were. It was like a
17 to 14. Like for a while at least. Anyway, Ohio State, I said this going into the season, and I think some Georgia fans got upset about it, but like objectively speaking, they have the best and most talented roster in the country. Like the people they brought in from the portal, like Quinshon, obviously Caleb Downs, Will Howard's been a serviceable quarterback. I don't know what his numbers have been, but that is the most consistent 2 touchdown, whether it be through the air or on the ground, 2 touchdowns a game quarterback like you're going to see in college football. I don't know, like the chart or the graph of how good he has to be relative to Ohio State having success. I feel like it gets lower and lower every week. There's so much fucking talent on that team. And here's the thing too, man. All the highlights we see, Jeremiah Smith, Quinshon, like Travion Henderson, Mecca Egbuka, Those are all on offense. That's just the offense. The defense is also, not just this year, has been over the last several years, like a top 5, top 10 caliber defense with just littered with first-round draft picks. I think Oregon is going to be the team of the future, like in college football. I think they're going to be really good. They're going to recruit better than everyone else. Like they get, they have a recognizable name brand. Like they're a new blue blood, right? I just don't know if I trust Dan Lanning in big game situations to not get in his own way. We saw it last year against Washington multiple times. We've seen it in other games. Like, it worries me that he's going to, saw it against Oregon State, I think 2 years ago. It worries me that he is going to get in his own way. And here's the thing, man, Ryan Day, I don't agree that Ohio State should be a 3-point favorite on the road in this game necessarily. But Ryan Day, for all the shit people talk about him, and say like he's not like an elite coach and he was born on third base or whatever. That man has lost 8 total games as a head coach. He has more first-round draft picks than total losses. 6 of those 8 teams went on to the college football playoff. I think 3 of them won a national championship. Like, he's not losing to fucking Vanderbilt. I think that Ohio State is on a fucking mission this year, so I'm going to pick them to win. But I think this is going to be a really, really good game.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a 2 TV, maybe 3 TV night with the Ole Miss LSU and the Florida Tennessee game on at the same time. So should be a pretty good slate starting in the afternoon, unless you are a Bama fan, maybe. The noon slate is kind of slow this week.
Yeah,
definitely picks up at the 3:30 matchup. So, anyways, anything else, Chris, before we take off here?
That is all.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Again, it has been a pleasure. Good luck to your teams this week. Give us a call. Thank you, and goodbye.